friends, welcome to LorAnn's Introduction to Isomalt. I'm Michelle Sweeney. I'm looking forward to showing you all the ins and outs of LorAnn's premium Isomalt. We're going to talk about safety and equipment. I'm actually going to show you how to cook the Isomalt down, and we're going to make lollipops. We're going to learn how to pour into molds, and then we're going to make the ever popular Isomalt Sail. So let's grab our aprons and get started. Let's talk all things Isomalt. Let's talk about what it is, let's talk about safety, and let's talk about equipment. And I've got a lot of it. So what the heck is Isomalt? So Isomalt is actually a sugar substitute that's derived from beets. It's used quite often in the weight loss industry as well as the diabetic industry. So when you see those sugar-free candies, chances are it's got Isomalt in it. Pastry chefs, confectionery artists, cake decorators, we all love it because you can heat it over and over again and it doesn't turn brown as fast as sugar does. If you were to reheat sugar, it's just going to continue to cook. Isomalt doesn't do that. So it's great for sugar work. It also tends to be a lot stronger than regular sugar, so when you see those really big, massive displays that are made out of sugar, it's probably Isomalt. We also like it because it tends to be humidity resistant. So it's a great product to work with. So that's what Isomalt is. Now, as far as safety goes, you really want to be safe when you're working with Isomalt. It's not something to fear. It's just like baking. When you're baking and you're using your oven, you put gloves on so that when you reach in and you take something out that's hot, your digits are protected. We want to do that with Isomalt as well. So we want to use gloves. So I have several different kinds of gloves here. And when I started out doing Isomalt many years ago, I wore multiple layers of gloves because you're using sugar that is at a high temperature. So it can be, 275 degrees. So you want to protect those little digits. So I actually wore 3 layers of gloves when I started out. Some people even wear 4. So I've got a couple different pairs here. When I started out, the first layer of glove that I put on are these candy gloves. So these are just white cotton candy gloves. They're used in the chocolate industry quite a bit. And I like them because you put those on first. When you're putting all these layers on, your hands are gonna sweat. They're gonna sweat when you start touching, 275 degree sugar. So this is gonna actually absorb that moisture, but it's also gonna be a heat barrier. So I'll put that on first. Then for my second layer, just the gloves that you get at the doctor's office, okay? And then on top of that, I would put a surgical glove. So now that I've been doing this for so long, I usually just wear the surgical glove. If I'm gonna be working with sugar for a really long time, or like when I did Cake Wars, I wore the candy gloves and the surgical gloves. So it's up to you as you work with Isomalt. You're going to build up a tolerance, your digits will, in terms of heat. But you just want to make sure that you are protected so that you don't get burned. The other thing that you need to take into consideration with safety, aside from gloves, and again, we've got gloves, these ones are fairly long, so they're going to come up to about here, which is important. But you also want to wear long sleeves when you're working with sugar. We want to protect our skin. You also want to wear pants, and you want to wear closed-toed shoes. Again, accidents happen in the kitchen all the time. We want to be as safe as we can, so if you do accidentally drop a spatula on the floor or, a bowl of Isomalt falls, you just want to make sure that you're protected. Now let's move on to our equipment. So again, I've got a lot of equipment here. First of all, let's start with our pan that we're going to use to cook our Isomalt in. I like to use a dedicated pan. You don't have to do that, it's just a personal preference. The reason why I like to dedicate a pan is because pans that I use every day in cooking tend to collect, fat, oil, food, you know, those types of things that you don't always get every, you know, nook and cranny, or you get buildup. You know, you get scorch marks and you just get buildup. Those will end up in your isomalt, and then your isomalt will not be crystal clear. So you want to have a really clean pan. If you're not going to dedicate a pan, then I would suggest that you use something like I use bar keepers. That's what I use to maintain my pans. That helps to get all of the sediment and the things that collect in your pan out. Then I wash it really good with soap and water. You can also use distilled white vinegar to wipe your pan down. I'm using a magnetic heavy base induction ready pan because I'm using an induction burner. I like to cook isomalt on an induction burner because the bottom is the only thing that heats up on an induction ready pan, rather than when I cook on the stove. You know, regular pans that aren't induction, they don't have that magnetic bottom, the sides heat up. So again, it's just a safety thing for me. I don't want everything hot. If I can control where the heat is, I prefer to do that. I also find that the induction burner cooks the isomalt a lot faster. So again, just personal choice. So this is an induction burner, induction ready pan. I'm dedicating this to my isomalt. The other thing is that when you are cooking your isomalt, going back to making your isomalt crystal clear, I like to use distilled water, and I will be stepping you through how to make the isomalt, but I do like to use distilled water rather than tap water because you don't get the minerals from the tap into your isomalt. Again, you have a cleaner, clearer isomalt. So next, let's go over thermometers. So I've got several over here. The first one is just a regular candy thermometer. You can get this from LorAnn's. And if you're gonna use a regular candy thermometer, the only thing I want you to do is to not clip it. Again, going back to the safety, if you for some reason have trouble struggling to get this out and you flip it up, you're gonna flip sugar everywhere. So just don't use the clip if you're gonna use the candy thermometer. The other thermometer that I have is a food thermometer. This is a meat thermometer, and I like it because it has a little probe, and I can put the probe in. I can set the temperature for you know, the temperature that I want to cook my isomalt to, and it will beep at me and tell me when it's, you know, hit the targeted temperature. I do use this infrared thermometer too, just to sort of monitor to make sure my thermometer is on point. That's all. Some of the other things that I like to use when I'm working with isomalt is a bowl or a bench scraper. I like to scrape up the little bits, and this makes it really easy. You can see I have a blue mat here. This is a silicone mat. That's what you want to work on. You also want to use silicone spatulas. That's my preference. They make cleanup a snap. So I've got those. You can also use stainless steel ones if you want to use that to stir instead. Definitely can do that. And then I like to use little wooden skewers for coloring my isomalt. A veiner tool for just pushing the isomalt into the nooks and crannies. This one I like because the isomalt pops right off of it. I've also got a scriber tool. This is what I use to poke any little bubbles out that are in my isomalt. And then I like to have a blade on hand. This is a pin blade. I like it to be able, you know, use it to clean up some edges. Great when you're doing lollipops, to clean up the edges on those. So those are really handy. Once I cook my isomalt, I like to pour it into a glass heat-proof dish like this that has handles on it. I find this is super helpful. You can also put this in the oven, you know, keep your isomalt at the 275-degree temperature. So that makes it handy. So I'll make my isomalt in here. I'll transfer it into my glass containers. I'll color it, and then from there I will actually transfer my colored isomalt into these types of containers. And I really like these because, again, it makes cleanup a snap. But the one thing that I really love is once the isomalt hardens, I can just pop it right out. And then I can stick it in a Ziploc bag and store it. So these are really nice for that. They're also flexible, so you can use them to pour. So you'll see me using these to pour. So those are handy. As far as coloring your Isomalt, let's talk about that for a second. When you're coloring your Isomalt, you always want to use either powdered color or gel color that is water-based. Isomalt is a water-based product, so we only want to use water-based colors in here, not oil-based. So you don't want to use the candy colors because those are oil-based. Same with flavoring. You absolutely can flavor your Isomalt. I recommend that you use a non-oil based flavoring. Next we have our torches. So I've got two different styles of torches. This is a fun little torch, and then this is just a standard creme brulee torch. You can get this at any store that sells kitchenwares. You just want to make sure you put the right type of fuel into those. And next I have my Isomalt, LorAnn's Isomalt here. So this is what it looks like. It looks a lot like laundry detergent. So you want to make sure you keep that out of your laundry room. Don't get it mixed up. But this is what it looks like, and we are going to heat it up. We're going to cook it down. I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm going to show you how to color it, and then we're going to get started making some really fun things. First, we want to go ahead and add our Isomalt to our pan, following the directions on the packaging. Next, we're going to go ahead and add our water. I'm using distilled. Then we're going to give it a good stir just to make sure it's incorporated. From here, we'll turn on our burner and add our thermometer. It's going to go through several different stages, so we're just going to keep an eye on it. It's going to take a little bit of time for this to completely boil all the way down. In the meantime, you can get a bowl of water ready because we will shock it. We want to make sure that we're very careful when we take that thermometer out so that we don't burn ourselves. And just give it a quick shock until the hissing stops. We will be ready to transfer it to our glass bowl. From here, your Isomalt is activated and you can reheat it in the microwave in 15 to 30 second intervals. Using our water-based gel colors, we're going to go ahead and add a little bit to the Isomalt. Once you give it the first stir, it will start to sizzle, so you just want to let that sizzling occur. That's just the water evaporating from the gel coloring. Give it a good stir, and we're ready to go. So I want to show you how to make a really cute Isomalt lollipop. And for this project, you're going to need a few things. You're going to need gloves of your choice, so we stay safe. You're going to need some cooking spray. We're going to be using that cookie spray on our cutters. These are biscuit cutters, and I've got 3 different sizes. We're going to be using that to oil the inside. I've got some sprinkles. You can use whatever color you want. I'm going with a lemonade theme, so I'm doing some pinks and some yellows, some white. I've got some edible frosting sheets here. These are really fun. These happen to be stickers. They come right off. I'm going to be using the lemonade theme. And then I have another frosting sheet here in coordinating patterns that I'm also going to be using for my lollipops. So the one thing you just want to keep in mind when you're making lollipops and you want some sort of graphic design on them, you want to use a frosting sheet that has been put through an edible printer. I'm also going to need some clear Isomalt that I've already cooked down, a spatula to keep things moving, and my scraper tool so that I can poke any air bubbles that I need to. Next, we want to use our cooking spray to coat our biscuit cutters. You're going to want to do that to all of your biscuit cutters that you're using for lollipops, and you'll want to do that in between. So if you make another set, you want to grease those. And this is so that the Isomalt will release. Then we just want to line it up with our sticker. I've gone ahead and heated up my Isomalt in 15 to 30 second increments in the microwave. I let the bubbles dissipate, and now I'm just pouring it into my mold right on top of my frosting sheet. From here, I'm using my scriber tool to pop any air bubbles that have come to the surface. You can also use your torch to hit any of those little air bubbles that have come to the surface and they will dissipate. Gonna let this sit for about 15 minutes and then we can just pop it out. Next, using a lollipop stick, I'm just gonna dip it in a little bit of that warm Isomalt. I'm gonna place it on my mat and then I will center my lollipop right on top. From here, I'm just gonna add my embellishments using some of my favorite sprinkles. I'll use a little bit of the Isomalt as my glue to stick it in place. This is super easy and it just adds a little bit of dimension to the lollipops. I also have some fun lemon sugar lay-ons that I'm gonna add to my lollipops. Using some of that Isomalt again for glue, I'm gonna go ahead and place that right onto my lollipops. If you have any little threads of Isomalt that stick to the lollipop, you can just hit it with your torch and they'll disappear. It's almost like spun sugar. So just hit it with your torch and it'll go right away. Next, I'm gonna add a really cute sugar lay-on flower that I think will look nice. I try to match the different things that show up in the graphic design of the edible image. Next, I'm gonna add a little bit of warm sugar to my mat because I want to dip some of these lollipops in my sprinkles. So I'm just gonna go around the outer edge of the lollipop and get some of that warm sugar on there, and then I'll just simply press it into my sprinkles and it will adhere just to where that warm Isomalt is. I want to show you how to make this really fun and very trendy Isomalt sail. So I've actually combined two sails here and I'm going to show you how to do this. But for this project, what you're going to need is two different colors of Isomalt. We're going to need our gloves for safety. We're going to need our torch. You're going to need some clips. So I've got some clips that I got at the office supply store. You could also use clothespins. We need a pastry silicone mat. Very, very flexible. That's the key. You want one that is super, super flexible because we're going to be pouring our Isomalt onto it. So it needs to be able to be flexible. You're gonna need your scriber tool to pop out any bubbles, air bubbles. We're gonna need our handy dandy spatulas to keep everything moving. And then you're going to need two different types of objects. We're going to be laying this pastry mat over the object to create our sail. So I'm using a milk bottle for one of my sails. The other, I just have this cake pedestal. I'm going to flip it upside down and I'm going to use this side of it for to create my sail on. So let's get started. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna heat up our Isomalt, we're gonna get our mat ready, and I'm gonna show you how to begin pouring. I've warmed up my Isomalt and my mat is ready to go, and I'm just gonna freeform this right into the middle of the mat. Next, I'm gonna take that warm sugar and place it over the top of my milk bottle, and I'm just gonna crimp and fold the sides in using those clips. You just want to make sure that you have nice little folds. I'm going to go ahead and repeat that process to do my double sail. So I'm using a different object this time, but again, same process, letting that sugar drip down and clip it in place. This is why you want a really flexible mat. From here, I'm just going to let this set up. Now we just want to very, very carefully remove the mat from our Isomalt sail. I've let this sit up for a couple of hours before I remove it. Once I'm happy with the arrangement of my two sails, I'll secure them together with a little bit of Isomalt. And then when I go to put it on my cake, I will only put it on a fondant covered cake and I will adhere it with a little more Isomalt to the fondant. So the next thing I'd like to do with Isomalt is show you how to use it in molds. So I've got this heat-proof silicone mold that is food safe. So that's the key. You want to make sure that you've got a food safe, heat tolerant mold. So if you are going to you know, say a craft store and you buy just like one of those plastic chocolate molds, that won't work. Your Isomalt will actually melt through that. So you want a silicone mold, one that is food safe and also heat safe. So this is a fun little chandelier gem one, and you can see I made some fun little pieces with it. So you're gonna need that. You'll need your mold, you'll need color of your choice, pre-cooked Isomalt, your torch, your gloves so that we are safe. You will also need your scriber tool, and you'll need a spatula to keep it all moving. I've gone ahead and heated up my Isomalt. I've let the bubbles dissipate, and just using a nice flexible cup, I'm gonna go ahead and pour right into my mold. You're gonna wanna let these sit for about 10 to 15 minutes or until the Isomalt no longer feels warm to the touch. Just repeat the process with all of your molds. I like to use my veinner tool to push any of the Isomalt into the nooks and crannies that I might have missed because it's such a small space. You could also use a toothpick if you don't have a veinner tool. Once you've given your Isomalt molds and your gems enough time to set up and they're no longer warm to the touch, you can simply pop them out, and you are going to want to take your torch and hit it. Hitting it with the torch will just make your gems super clear and really sparkly. So depending on the quality of your mold, this will be an important step just to make sure that you've got a really nice, beautiful piece. You can make these pieces up well in advance, store them in Tupperware with your food-safe desiccant packs. Now that we've made all these really fun Isomalt pieces, let's talk a little bit about troubleshooting challenges that you might run into. For example, what do you do if your Isomalt becomes cloudy? So I have a piece here that I have let sit for several days, and the humidity where I'm at right now has been between 50 and 80%. So this has been sitting for a couple days, and I just wanted to show you, you can kind of see it's pretty dull. It's got a lot of clouding, and that's because it's just been really humid here. This piece here that I poured earlier today, you can see it's very shiny. It's actually a little bit sticky still. So what do you do in either case? What if it's too sticky, or what if it's too cloudy? Too sticky, very easy. You just take a fan, point it on your Isomalt piece, and let the tackiness go down. What do you do with the cloudiness? You simply just take your torch, hit those cloudy spots, and they'll disappear. As far as storing your Isomalt, if you've got little pieces like this that we made with the molds, you can actually store those right in Tupperware containers with some food grade desiccant packs. Now, what do you do for bigger pieces? Well, I have a really good tip for you. If you have a cake carrier, you know, one of those nice domed cake carriers, it'll fit a wonderful piece like this, not a problem. Pop the top off, put your piece in, throw in a desiccant pack, again food grade, put the top on, it will keep that moisture away. So those are some of the things that you can do to overcome any challenges that you might face with your Isomalt, depending on your climate and the time of year. We learned so much in this video. We learned how to cook the Isomalt down, we made these really fun lollipops, we learned how to pour the Isomalt into molds, and we made a really cute, trendy Isomalt sail. But more importantly, we gained an appreciation for safety and equipment when it comes to Isomalt. We look forward to seeing all of your creations. Be sure to check out LorAnn's Makerspace and visit us online at www.loranoils.com. Until next time.